So maybe I just changed.
All right, good morning, y'all. It is 10 o'clock, and what you have, currently, we have a guest speaker today, just really quick. His name is Richard Gordon, and he is an insurance company that does marketplace research. I know a lot of you guys may have your spouse that work full-time and have the benefit of insurance, but for those of you that do not have insurance, I can tell you that he's done myself and my family and a couple other agents that I know of a really great service and a huge discount. So he will, I will share his information with you guys after the sales meeting and through email. And you guys, please reach out to him if you just want to do some price comparison. I will tell you, he saved me a ton of money, and this is personal reference. This is not something I heard about, and as well as other agent. Richard, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, Richard, you got the floor for 5 minutes.
All right, thank you. Good morning to everyone there. It's a pleasure to meet you and to be able to do a presentation for you. My name is Richard Gordon. I'm an independent agent broker, which means that I work for you. I'm not a captive agent. I'm not beholden to any one company. My job is to put you in the best plan that I can get you in. What you're looking at are the income guidelines for Obamacare ACA plans. The advantage of these plans is that if you have a pre-existing condition, as soon as coverage goes into effect, you would have coverage for that condition. So for an example, if you had cancer today, right now, and we were able to put you in a plan that would be effective February 1st, you'd be able to get treatment for that cancer starting February 1st. That's the advantage of Obamacare and ACA plans. The guidelines that you're looking at are your adjusted gross incomes. I know as brokers, you guys make a lot more than these numbers, but after you take your expenses, if your adjusted gross income falls in these guidelines based on your family size, then you would qualify for what's called a tax credit. So that's additional money from the government to help pay for the insurance. If you don't fall within these guidelines, you can still get a plan. You're just not going to be able to get the tax credit. So it's just going to cost you a little bit more. The other thing that happened this year in 2023 is they fixed what they called the family glitch. And what that means is that if you have, say your spouse has insurance through their employer, what happened before was that if you added your family to that plan, it became extremely expensive and unaffordable. So what they did this year is they said, what we'll do is we'll allow you, your family members, to go ahead and get a plan through Obamacare and still be able to get the tax credit. So that's another option. So that's basically, how the system works. And if you go back up to the top part, you'll see the family sizes, and the incomes that go across. So if you have a family size of 4, you can have an adjusted gross income up to $111,000 and still be able to get the tax credit. If it's over that, you can still get the insurance, you just won't get the tax credit.
So it is worthwhile a conversation with Richard, you guys, to see what you can save. It's probably won't take Richard helped me, it was less than 20 minutes based on the information he needed, and I responded back to him. And with that, bam. Of course, he would need the subsequent information so he can then put that in the system. But as far as the rates and quotes, it was phenomenal. And I don't endorse anything that I personally haven't experienced on this one. And I know a lot of you guys, as most of us are maturing, that we probably have some more illness and stuff like that. So even for the younger folks, this is good for you to have in case something happens. Insurance is exactly what it is. It's insurance to cover you during time of hardship. So give Richard a call, and I will definitely put some information out right after the sales meeting. Richard, do you have anything to add, or do I need to do any more up and down?
No, I don't have anything else well, I do have one other thing to add, and that is if, you know, you can't or I can't find a plan for you in here, there are some other options that I do have. The only problem with those options is they exclude pre-existing conditions.
So with this particular program, they exclude any pre-existing condition you may or may not have. So that's the difference. Okay, well, thank you, Richard. I appreciate your time. I'm sorry that this morning was a little hectic, but I think we got everything that we need. And so as far as the plan and rates, y'all please contact him just because he's an expert in the subject matter. And I'd rather leave it to the expert on that, okay?
All right.
Thank you, Richard. Appreciate
All
you.
right, thank you. All right.
Take care.
Yep,
Alan,
bye-bye.
you got control now. Alan's actually in Fayette today, so I'm gonna leave myself. Oh, y'all, happy New Year. Happy New Year. Whew. Right into it, but I didn't want you guys to have any issues. Hey, good morning, Alan. You got control Conyers? By the way, that's a classic image of folks after the New Year's and Christmas. So I know a lot of Asians were really happy.
Ming? Can y'all hear me
It's
out
on
there?
you, babe. You got the floor.
We can hear.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna try it again here and we'll start all over one more time. I apologize. So my name is Alan Richard. I'm the managing broker here at Maximum One, and we're starting into a new 2023. And I want to make sure that we're looking at what is real and not just at headlines, because the headlines can confuse us. And so there's also in any market, there's opportunities to be had. And so we need to be looking at finding the opportunities. I was just mentioning that, if you read the headlines, they'll say that days on market is up 44%. Does that sound scary? Sorry. Does that sound scary? Yeah, it does. I mean, if you think about it, wow, days on market is up 44%. Okay, we went from, but that's true. We went from 22 days on market to 33. That sound really scary to you when you put it in context? No. And like we're still well below historical norms. And so, but if all you read is the headlines, then you start thinking about, man, like things are looking bad, things are looking negative and that kind of stuff. And especially in housing, we really shouldn't be taking a very pessimistic look to how that's going. So I want to start off with kind of like where we've been. Like what have we been going through for the last year? And so if there's one thing that kind of defined 2022 in the real estate market in our space, it was interest rates. Mortgage rates is what ruled our roost, right? Because we saw that, we started off the year with some of the historically lowest interest rates of the year. And then we ended, well, not ended, but we went through like what would normally take 7 or 8 years of shifts to kind of make in a year. We went from extreme lows to extreme highs in the same year, kind of thing. And so what happened to our buyers when that happened?
They ran.
Yeah, they sat on the sidelines is what they did. That's exactly what happened to our buyers. But it wasn't just our buyers. Who else sat on the sidelines? Sellers, right? And so that's the thing. There's a lot of people who's like, the real estate market's gonna crash, or prices are gonna start going down. Look, we don't have enough inventory, because yes, the buyers backed off for sure, but the sellers backed off too. And residential real estate is highly, I mean, like the number one economic force driving residential real estate is supply versus demand. And even right now, do we have enough homes on the market? No, we don't. And so, this has been a big shift for us for the last year here. And so like you can see that right now, and this is what we know, pending sales, the total number of transactions, total transactions are down. And so, like again, December, it was down 34%. But you can kind of see, this is where we've been for the past several years. The top is from Georgia. I pull all this data right before the meeting. So all this was pulled yesterday or last night. And some this morning. But so the top is from Georgia MLS, the bottom is from FMLS, and you can see exactly where we sit. So our median sales price, however, I mean, we just talked about this, even though our total transactions are down, what's happening with property values? It's still up, right? So I mean, even in December, even with 34% pending sales down, we're still up 2% in property values. So we're not seeing, and for our regular consumers, for Jane and John Smith out there, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, how do they, I mean, what is the housing market? What's the big indicator for their housing market, for the housing market? Is my home worth less today than it was yesterday? And so for the vast majority of Americans, especially here in the Atlanta area, because nationwide, this is not the case, but in the Atlanta area, we're in a very good position when it comes to property values. Like we didn't see, I mean, if for those that have been in it for the last 2 or 3 years here through real estate, you'd figure, and what we saw happen with prices, you would figure, man, our price increases were really stout, not compared to when you look at some of the other cities around the United States. Those, there were cities that had 40 to 50% property value increases. Those are the same places now that are going to see declines. But Atlanta and the Atlanta area and Georgia overall, we saw price value increases, but it was very much moderated. We weren't on the high end. We were on the very steady side of things. So even though, and if you look at the markets where they're worried about it, California, some markets in Florida, things like that, New York, that's where you're going to see your property value declines. We're not looking at property value declining here. So total number of homes for sale. Now this is for the last, you can see on this graph right here, this is since 2009. So our total inventory of homes, is it up or down? It's down. It's even trending down, right? So even right now, we do not have enough homes on the market, which is, this is the big factor that's really helping to hold us in place right now. How about new listings? See, it's the new listings that we have are few and far between. The new listings are what's really kind of keeping our inventory even tighter right now. Normally new listings that, that's kind of the lifeblood for our whole industry kind of thing. We get new listings, those things are going hot and fast. So a couple of things when we talk about new listings. One, when you put a property on the market, it needs to be priced right. If the price is right, these suckers are glowing, okay? Even though we have some inventory that's sitting there, those are the folks who think, I think it's just gonna, I think we can, let's try this price and let's see if someone will go for that. And in this market, is anybody going for that? Are the buyers going for it? No. Can you put a property out that doesn't need repair? I mean, that needs repairs, has ugly paint, stains on the carpet, that kind of stuff. Is that gonna fetch top market value? No, it isn't, kind of thing. And so for those folks who thought, I'll just try it, let's see what I can do. The Smiths down the street sold for this price, that kind of thing. That's not what we're seeing. So, but total listings right now overall are down. And why do you think listings are down? New listings are down. Well, for the same reason what we talked about, interest rates. Like, am I going to sell my house at a 4% interest rate that I own with a 4% interest rate and go buy a home at a 6% interest rate? It's a financial decision right now. So what about percent of list price? So you can kind of see that still right now we are running 99.2% of list price. List to sell price ratio is 99%. Is that good or bad? I mean, look where it's been over the last 14 years. We're still really, really good shape. So is the housing market in a bad spot kind of thing? Like if housing was really bad, we'd be seeing a big drop. I mean, back in 2009, that's back when we saw, we were still coming out of the crash, which by the way, is 15 years ago now. You want to feel old? Y'all remember the housing crash? Can y'all imagine that's 15 years ago? You want to feel old? Just think about that for a minute. So how about our days on market? What's going on with our days on market? It depends on who you ask, kind of thing, between Georgia MLS and FMLS. But right now, FMLS has us at 24, Georgia MLS has us at 12, that kind of thing. And nationwide, it's at about 36 days on market. And last year it was around 20. It was 22, and now it's 33 nationwide. And that's why I was talking about the headlines. But here in Georgia, our days on market is 24. How about that compared to where we've been for the last 14, 15 years, kind of thing? We're still in really, really good shape there. So, and then we get down to the supply side. How many months of supply do we have in our market? We have 2.1 months of supply. Now I just pulled this up this morning. So we're sitting, so as of December, we sat with 2.1 months of standing inventory. So this is where this puts us in this graph, because we need 6 months of standing inventory to have a balanced market. We normally need about 6 months of standing inventory, means that the number of buyers that we have and the number of sellers that we have is balanced. Are we in that market right now? But it feels like it's a buyer's market a little bit, right? But we are in a shift, we are in a transition, there's no doubt, but you can see like 2 months of standing inventory, we're tight. There's not enough inventory of homes out there. And that's why we're not seeing property value reductions in here at all. By the way, I'll give any of these slides to y'all. So no worries. I'll send it out to the branch managers. You can just have these things, because these things make great fodder to put on social media, to be able to post out. You can pull it back and do a little video on that kind of stuff. So please take and steal, borrow, whatever you want, anything you see on here, because I'll be glad to give it to you. So again, this is our supply versus demand side. And so you can see that, our total number of actives, new and sold, same thing we've just been talking about, just on a different graph. The other one was from FMLS, this one's from Georgia MLS. And so I like to show the data from both of our major MLSs in our market. And so we still do not have enough supply to meet. And so I pulled up the comparison report, and you can see that right now, FMLS showed us down at 34%. Georgia MLS is looking at 33% down. That being said, we have a property value increase of still 7.3% last month on the list side, and 1.9 or 2%. See, going into next year, and I'll talk about our predictions here. If you laid out property values and said, and just put it out there over the last 50 years, how much did property has property appreciated over the last 50 years? 4.4%. So for the last 50 years, if you just went year over year, laid it out, 4.4% is our average property value increase year over year, just laid out on a graph. Now, the last 2 years were not normal, right? And honestly, if we were to keep that, that would be something that's not sustainable. We've had double-digit property value increases over the last 2 years. So with us coming in at about a 2% property value increase, is that doable? Yeah, we're in that 2 to 4% range, which is, I think, where we're going to end up being over the next couple of years, or for the rest of this year, I believe. So, the other thing we have to remember is we're comparing ourselves to the highest level of activity ever. When you start comparing 2021 was, we had more transactions. It was the anomaly. 2021 was the year where the more things went, like we are comparing it to, like, most of the time you throw out your really highs and your really lows when you do comparisons. We keep comparing ourselves to 2021, and what was 2021? The highest, right? That's normally the thing that you would throw out. So we have to also make sure that we're keeping things into context when it goes that way as well. So on a more personal basis, we went back through and I started looking at, like where did our closings come from? And this is something that I hope that you can kind of, compare and contrast with your own business. So, but where does our business come from? And this is through our transactions here. And so, and these are not necessarily in order, but when we went through and started grouping in, talking to folks and looking at who's doing a lot of transactions and where they're coming from, these are some of the places where we're getting most of our closings from right now. And I wanted to bring this up and kind of go over this list with you because is it time for you to look at, see, where's your business coming from and what am I making, what can I focus on to help make a really good impact? Number one is from working our databases. Still at the, even in this age of technology and the whole 9 yards, the number one thing is relationships. And so working our databases is the number one thing. Even though the rest of these are not in any particular order, that one is. Working our databases, relationship marketing, talking to our folks, that kind of stuff. That's really the biggest one out there. Actually, 1 and 2, picking up the phones. A lot of times we don't like to answer our phones, especially those unknown numbers, right? Most of the time that could be money calling. So we got to make sure that we're answering those phones. Social media is another one, and we've actually had quite a few agents that send out those posts like, "Hey, I need a little help here, looking for this kind of property. Hey, I got a buyer looking in this area," that kind of thing. Those have worked out really, really well. Open houses are back. You do an open house, you can get a lot of traction at there also, especially when they're priced right. We had several agents that this past year moved over from buying leads to buying lunches. It's about building relationships, and they're like, I get so much more value. I used to spend $1,000 a month, and now I take 5 or 6 clients out to lunch. I spend $250, and I get a lot more business than I ever got out of spending $1,000 a month. First-time buyer seminars have been very successful for some of our agents. We got quite a few folks that are geographically farming neighborhoods. Agent referrals is another one. Utilizing your Google My Business page. We had several folks that, this past year, we really helped a lot of our agents to set up their Google My Business page. If you haven't, you really should. It's basically free business. Unsolicited video CMAs. We got a couple of folks that have started really embracing that's paying off. Circle prospecting, that's basically when you prospect out around a particular listing. Housewarming parties, going away parties, that kind of stuff. We have a couple of folks who really kind of embraced with the expired listings. And over the past year, an expired listing was, another way of putting it, was just overpriced. And then referral base. We had quite a few of these, the OpCity, Veterans United, Zillow Flex, that kind of stuff. We had a lot of transactions that came in through that. Absentee owners, focusing on Airbnb hosts, because Airbnb has kind of been up and down. So sometimes those hosts are ready to get out of there. And then even door knocking and for sale by owners. So that's where a lot of our business comes from. And so, we do a lot of lead generation classes, and we'll sit down and work with you and help you on anything that you want to work on there. But as far as as a company, where did our closings come from this year? They came from these type of activities. And so I need you to look at what activities am I doing and how can I take advantage of, I know that these are things that we're doing that are actually working. They're producing results kind of thing. So I just wanted to be very specific and real about it, because especially when I start talking about numbers and hey, here's where we've been, but this is what we did. This is what, agents did to actually produce results last year. So that being said, where are we heading to? Where are we going to here? And so, is a recession around the corner? Now, a lot of folks, all a recession is 2 consecutive quarters with GDP drops. But there's a lot more to it than that. And so, there was a survey done by LendingTree, and they said that 41% of Americans believe the housing market is going to crash in the next 12 months. 72% believe the housing market will crash and it will be as bad or worse than 2008. And 58% of that group expect it in the next year, saying that they're postponing housing related activities. Now, we just looked at kind of some numbers about what's going on. Do you guys think that the housing market is going to be crashing? No, I don't see a housing market crash at all, kind of thing coming up. Matter of fact, I see us already coming out. But when we start hearing that recession word, we remember 2008, right? But the other thing is, we got our millennial home buyers right now. And our millennial home buyers, it's not just our millennial home buyers, but other buyers, when they hear the word recession, what do they think is going to happen to the housing market? Ooh, baby. Give me some of them cheap houses, right? Well, I know that we may have shown going through a recession on paper. And I personally believe that the economy will be going into a recession, but housing has already had the recession. And I'll show you why I say that. But before I get there, I want you to understand that today is not like 2008, right? 15 years ago. How about jobs? What was going on? How's our jobs market right now in the US? Strong. Right. So back in 2000, y'all remember 2008 jobs? Yeah. I mean, there was 8 million job losses. And then, how was the mortgage industry back in 2008? Oh, the mortgage industry was jacked up. We were all Oprah Winfrey of real estate. Like, you get a house and you get a house. And if you got a pulse, I'm going to get you a house too. And your dog gets a house and your cat gets a house. And so that turned out to be, needless to say, like housing was the leading cause of the 2008 crash. And so because we were the cause of the crash, who paid the price? Housing did, right? And it was well deserved. But do we have subprime loans right now?
No.
Do we have no doc loans and that kind of stuff? No, we don't have any of that. How about new construction? And I'll show you some of this. Before 2008, what was new construction doing? Blowing up. Yeah, how about now? No.
Townhomes are coming up. That's
Townhouses are coming up, and I'm thankful for townhouses because townhouses are the starter home for this generation.
That is in
Well, but not all of them. All right, how about inventory and market? Back in 2008, we had about 4 million homes on the market. Now we got about 1 million. So we have a bigger population. We have a millennial population who's the largest population group of all time. And we have a quarter of the houses on the market that we had in 2008. Remember supply versus demand when we first started talking? Mortgage delinquency rate, it was at 10% back then. It's 3.6 now. There was about 5% of the homes in foreclosure. It's about 0.6, less than 1%. So is this like it was in 2008? This is not like that. And so the only person who's going to educate your clients about this is going to be you. It's going to be us. And we have to be the voice of reason about what's really going on and showing what's happening in the real estate market kind of thing. First of all, understand that a recession does not mean that property values drop. These are the last 6 recessions that we've had in the United States. Now, we already know about 2008. Whose fault was 2008? Us. Got it. That was our fault. How about all the other recessions? I mean, we had one that was down 2%, but what about what happened to property values the rest of the time? They increase. If you go back even past those 6 recessions to previous recessions, they were property value increased on all of those. So these are just the 6 most recent kind of thing. So does a recession mean that property values will go down? Right. So, hey, I'm going to wait until the recession so I can buy a cheap house. Well, if you want to wait, you can just spend more next year for it. It's really what we're looking at. And I want you to be able to speak confidently and intelligently about that. So these are more, the other thing I want you to look at, remember when we started talking off, we said, what drove 2022? Interest rates, mortgage rates. Y'all notice a correlation between, so like this right here, these gray bars, these represent recessions. And during those recession periods, what happens to interest rates? They drop. These are what happens when interest rates, or when you go into a recession. So like, I really do believe that we're heading into more of an economic recession, meaning, that our GDP will be dropping. but understand that real estate's already had their recession. And so, some people have, and let me back up. I'm not like, yay, a recession. Okay, I don't want anyone to think that that's what I'm saying, but I am being very open-minded and realistic about it. I don't want anyone to have financial problems. I'm not looking for anything like that. But the bottom line is that when there is an economic recession, interest rates drop. We know that there's a ton of demand. There's not enough supply. It's all driven by interest rates. What happens when interest rates drop? What's going to happen? Y'all follow me, right? Because the average drop during the average drop for all these from the peak to the trough is 2.37%. So if we've already peaked at what were we, 6.6, something like that? What happens if we drop interest rates a couple points? Woo! What happens if interest rates start moving back into the 4s and 5s? Now, I can just, so again, am I worried about a recession? Y'all follow me, right? So the other thing is that for the last 50 years, our interest rates have followed the 10-year treasury. And so the 10-year treasury yields, if you were to lay out well, you don't have to lay it out, it's on the screen. So you can see that in blue, that's the 10-year treasury rate. In green, that's the 30-year fixed mortgage rate. See any correlation there? Yeah, kind of tied together a little bit, right? Yeah. The average spread is 1.7%. On average, mortgage rates run about 1.7% higher than the 10-year treasury. And so this is what we've seen happen with the 10-year treasury over the past year. Notice any correlation to what's happened to interest rates this past year? Right, so 10-year treasury went up, what happened with interest rates? Right, now remember I said there's that 1.7% spread. So back in 2021, so right now our 10-year treasury rate somewhere around 3.5. Back in 2020, in 2000 and 2021, 3.5, we would have had a 1.7% bump on that. Right now, we got a 3% bump on there. So there's the mortgage companies and the secondary mortgage market is building in extra fluff in there. And it's all tied to inflation. Everybody's worried about inflation. It's not just the feds, everybody's worried about inflation. So right now there's a lot of interest rate pressure. There's a lot of opportunity for interest rates to come down as well, is what I'm saying. So one, we know that during a recession time, interest rates drop. But in addition, we've got this, if we had a normal spread right now, just a normal spread on the 10-year treasury, between the 10-year treasury and interest rates, we'd be sitting at 5.5. So what do you think happens when inflation starts going down? And do we feel inflation is going to start going down? This is our forecast for inflation. So this is kind of what we're looking at moving forward. And it's been painful this past year. And which industry took the biggest brunt of the Feds raising the federal funds rate? We did, right? Yeah. And I don't want any more of that, I'll be honest with you. So that's had a big impact on us already. But what happens when those inflation numbers start coming down across the board? And they will. So we have to understand that, when you look at you'll hear about the consumer price index. What makes up the biggest piece of the consumer price index? What? Housing. 42% of consumer price index is housing. What's happened with housing now? Because it's already happened to us. What's happened to it? It's down. I mean, we're not seeing property, but overall, are we seeing massive property value increases? Are we seeing big jumps? Hasn't this already happened, is what I'm saying. Right? See, housing has already had its recession. Like what's happened with the interest rates, all that kind of stuff. We've been, I mean, like the rest of the economy hasn't felt it the way that housing has. Just on total number of transactions, that kind of stuff moving forward. And so you know, when you look at that shelter component, the housing component, you know, that's one of the biggest things out there. And we already know, we feel it, we're in the industry, we already know housing's already there. The rest of the economy is still yet to catch up on that. And so this is from Barry Habib, MBS Highway. It says, because we see a slowdown and we see the inflation comparisons start to become more and more favorable, you'll start to see that inflation number move lower, lower, lower. As a result, mortgage rates should move downward on a downward trajectory, probably giving us around 5% to below 5% in the next 6 months. But if I just shared that slide with you without showing you why, you would be like, Alan's just blowing smoke up my skirt. Alan don't know what he's talking about. Y'all follow me? Because it's important to understand that like, you know, as real estate agents, you know, we've been around each other for a long time, right? And it's always like, hey, is it a good time to buy? Sure is, right? It's a good time to sell. Yeah, I don't care what day, whatever kind of thing. But am I blowing smoke up your skirt here? I want you to understand what's driving my belief that interest rates are coming down. Y'all follow me? So, you know, we're going to be looking at interest rates continuing their downward trajectory kind of thing. Even Lawrence Yun, he's the chief economist at NAR. The upcoming months, you'll see a return to buyers as mortgage rates appear to have already peaked and have been coming down since mid-November. So they're seeing the same thing I'm talking about. So in addition to that, how about our debt to income ratio as a country? Are we in good shape or bad shape? Well, this is us. You can see that back in the housing bubble, it was very different. Today, debt service, you know, like these are big national numbers we look at, but when people say, is housing going to crash? Our debt service is in really, really good shape. We have a lot of equity in our homes. There's nothing that's going to really change. How about foreclosures? Are foreclosures up?
No.
Yes. Well, if you could, but compare 2021 to 2022,
Okay.
you kind of got to get over here. I mean, don't follow me here. Depends on what the news says. Foreclosures are up 48%. I think it's actually like foreclosures are up like 200%. So if you go from here to there.
Oh, well, yeah. When
Right.
you go from there to there, it looks
So I go from here to here, how does foreclosures look?
terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, you guys are on the market. How many foreclosures you guys see out there rolling around? And if there is one, we're on it like white on rice. All right. The second quarter, the mortgage delinquency rate fell to its lowest levels since the Mortgage Bankers Association began. Foreclosure starts and loans in the process of foreclosure also dropped in the third quarter below normal averages. So is there, you know, like, I'm just going to wait for the foreclosures. Is there a good chance of that happening? So are we like, I mean, like 2 million versus 88,000, we in good shape? We're in good shape, right? Housing supply. Again, we talked about housing supply. So right now we say, you know, supply is increasing. It's not up big, but it is increasing. When you compare that where we were with back in 2019, look, we are still, we still have we don't have enough houses. We are severely restrained. This graph here shows housing or housing units that were constructed over the last, I think, 50 or so years. And so that black line in the middle, that's how many units that we would need just to be able to meet normal demand. That's the 50-year average. And so what's happened for the last 14 years, y'all, in construction? We haven't met the 50-year average for the last 14 years. We haven't touched it, actually. You can see, you know, in 2006, 2007, well, we were there. We know what happened, right? And so, I mean, we spent what, 3, 4, 5 years driving around. There are PVC farms everywhere, right? And then we spent the last 5 or 6 years with the builders using up all that old inventory, and they're just now starting to develop some stuff. But building, and now the builders are scared to death to build again, right? So we're not seeing any hope on the horizon. So, like, we got a lot of demand. Supply is already tight and we're not building enough. So if we're not building enough, what happens with property values? Are they going to go down? Can they go down? We talked about this before. So how, mortgage credit availability and lending standards. We had some jacked up lending standards. Everybody in the real estate, especially on the real estate financing side, got really, really greedy. It's very easy for me to point fingers at other people, but I can promise you, I was in that market. I remember saying, I don't know how these people going to be able to afford this house. And guess what? They did. And I look back and I think, was I really doing I'm getting serious. I remember thinking, man, like they cobbled together this one old boy sold his car to buy a house. I'm like, oh, you know how that happened. So but that's not our place today. That's not where we're really at. And then you put into it that we have, what's the largest population group that we have in the United States? Millennials. So, and what is the first time home buyer age?
32.
33 to 34, right? How old is this peak home buying group? 28 to 32. So what's happening over the next 4 years for the largest population group we have in the United States? They're all moving into first time home buyer age. We're not building enough inventory. We don't have enough inventory. What y'all think is going to be happening with property values? How can housing crash? We don't have enough houses. We got more people. We were making babies. We ain't been building no houses. So now let's get a little more specific. Top 10 states people moved away from and to. Georgia, we came in at number 7. More people, we're the 7th highest state where people move into.
South Carolina.
Well, you can see the list right there. I don't care about South Carolina, but I mean, but what's on the left? This is from U-Haul. This is where U-Haul sees the most people coming and going. Over here on the right, this is from move.org. And so it's just different data points kind of thing, but you can still see on U-Haul, we're the number 8, according to move.com, we're number 7. So are we in a really good position? We have a very positive inflow of people moving into Georgia. So we got more people moving in, big millennial population. Georgia is very popular with the millennials. We ain't building no houses. Again, I want you to feel confident about our market. So our total transactions are down, but are we seeing a drop in housing? Are we seeing property value declines? Are we going to be seeing mortgage, all this other kind of stuff going on? Are we going to be seeing foreclosures? No, we aren't. There's no way that can happen. We have too much demand, not enough supply. And it's not just me blowing numbers and talking about things. So this is from Fannie Mae, the senior VP and chief economist. From our perspective, the good news is that the demographics remain favorable for housing, so the sector appears well positioned to help lead the economy out of what we expect will be a brief recession. See, housing's already had its recession. So who's going to be the savior of the economy? Housing can absolutely be driving the boat, going through coming out. I believe, like they said, if we're not in a recession on paper right now, we probably are going to be first quarter, second quarter, something like that. And I'm not getting political about it. I'm just saying that's kind of where we're at. That's kind of my feelings and what it really looks like where we're going to come in at. So, but that being said, I'm not worried about a recession because we've already rode that wave. We've been riding that wave for a while now. And the forces that are impacting real estate are very different than what's impacting a lot of other sectors of the economy. So even right now, you can be like, well, the market's slow. We're selling a house every 8 minutes. We're selling 11,000 homes a day. So please don't get in your head that the market, I know it's tougher and I know it's tighter, but that being said, There's definitely a piece of that pie of that 11,000 homes that are being sold every day that you can partake in. Right? We're still seeing a lot of activity going on over there.
And that's nationwide.
That's nationwide, yeah. So, but the good news about those nationwide, we're in the Sun Belt, what's considered the Sun Belt. What's the #1 real estate sector in the United States? Sun Belt. You know, about 40% of the transactions of 40% of all the transactions in the United States happen in the Sun Belt. So we're in good shape there. So,
Alan?
yep,
Now, the majority of those sales, are those coming from resale or construction?
that's just total numbers.
Okay.
Yeah. So, as far as like home price forecast, you can see that everybody's kind of all over the place with that. Right? You can see that, you know, if you average out everybody, it just comes in at about a 0.7. Really what I want to look at here is, you know, these are a lot of our, of the big brain people out there going on, and what they're talking about for 2023. And I really want, and you know, like, to me, everything for this year, just like everything for this past year, is going to come down to interest rates. So as we see inflation go down, as we see some, you know, a recession type environment, we should see interest rates drop. See, all those existing home sales are based on, you know, 6s and 5s and that kind of stuff. I think we're going to be back into the 5s. I think it's going to keep moving down. I think there's a lot of room to move between the 10-year treasury. I think that as inflation eases, we will see interest rates continue to come down. So I expect that, you know, I'm hopeful, and the data looks like we should be moving back down under 6s into the 5s and possibly lower. But that's what it looks like to me. I don't see any data that proves me otherwise. Home prices, overall, I think here in Georgia, we're going to be somewhere in that 2 to 5% property value appreciation. So we may have a month where it goes flat, or maybe goes under 1%, and then we have a month where it goes up 7% and 5% and 3%. But guess what? Those are completely normal times. Like, that's what our market does in a normal thing, you know. If we can get back to the days of a 4.4% annual property value increase, that's very, very healthy for us. And that'd be nice to actually have a little bit of a balanced market again, kind of thing moving forward. And then existing home sales, the total number of transactions. I think that, you know, we're still going to be, if you're looking at total transactions this year versus last year, it's going to look depressing, especially through the first quarter. But once we get through the first quarter, what happened after the first quarter of last year? Interest rates started moving up, and what happened to total transactions? So overall, we'll be back up over last year. We'll probably start off in the negative on the first quarter because our interest rates will not come down enough. But then as our interest rates come down and we start comparing with last year, we really are going to start moving into some very positive territory down there. So I got a couple of the bullet points I really want to talk to you about really quick. And so one of those is who here has sold a smart home so far? Okay, because we keep getting into some problems here with smart homes. And when I say problems, we end up with buyers and sellers who are angry at each other. We end up with things that we didn't plan on because these technologies are newer. And so some of these things that we're talking about aren't even listed on our property disclosure reports. So like when you have a seller that has a smart home, okay, and by that, doorbells, smart locks, thermostats, light switches, video cameras, and voice assistants, right? Just about everybody's got an Alexa, right? And so we have to look at like, what's a fixture and what's personal property. So what would you say an Alexa is? That's probably personal property, right? But how about a smart door lock? Okay, but now you see where I'm going here now, right? Right, but see now we're getting into, because what we have is we have folks who are going in and like, I want to buy this home because it's already set up. Like, it's got high-speed internet, it's got Wi-Fi set up through the entire house, it's got, you know, electronic it's got Wi-Fi thermostats, it's got all these kind of things. And then we had a situation where Buyer comes in and guess what? Ain't nothing there, right? It's all, they're like, there's just like wires hanging out of stuff, right? And so-
It happened to me where, they had like a smart knock on the door, and when after everything's done, we went back, there was like a big hole in the door, so they took it out.
Oh, they just left the hole. That was pretty nice, yeah. Right, so. But these are things that we as agents need to start looking at both from the buy side and the sell side. Because some of these things are not even listed on the property disclosure report.
After that, so being listed on the property as well.
What's that?
I was about to ask that, are they being listed on the property as well?
You know,
That's not being sold.
we update, you know, especially on the GAR forms. You know, GAR updates that on a very regular basis.
Mhm.
That being said, I do know that there's always new technologies, and so it does say door locks. It doesn't say the electronic door locks, that kind of stuff. But you know, is a thermostat or not? And so all I'm saying here is that for both buyers and sellers, we need to get into the mindset of we need to make sure that we're understanding what is our buyers buying and what is our sellers leaving and what are they offering as part of the house. And it's one of those where on that same instance, what I told you about, where they took all the electronics, they took all the Wi-Fi, they took all that kind of stuff. Guess how the home was marketed? As a smart home. Buy this smart home, Wi-Fi, then comes move-in day. Guess what? They yanked all that crap right out of there. So like, we have to be very careful that well, but you know, again, is it a fixture? Is it personal property kind of thing? There's some gray area here. Personally, I lean that towards being a fixture once it's permanently affixed to the property. It should be there. But again, we're in that transition time where this is some new technology. And so if we don't start looking at that and changing how we do and talking to our sellers during the listing presentation and going over and discussing that and being very clear, going through and doing the property disclosures, what are they really leaving, making sure that the buyers also understand, no, my seller's not leaving this. Because in addition to that, we had other ones where they did leave everything, but guess what? They didn't give them passwords. So like, well, but I mean, I'm serious. And but again, this is an issue that we're having now because.
I just want to interrupt. The group wanted to repeat the statement, I guess, about the smart home. They
Oh.
didn't hear, I guess, what she had said about you had a smart home. I guess there was a hole in the door.
Oh, yeah, they took the smart lock and just left the hole in the door. I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, they didn't hear. Thank you.
So, but we got to be very careful about that if there's any special tools, like if you use a Ring doorbell, there's a little ring, like we have a Ring, but there's a little ring screwdriver that gets that screw off. And if you don't have it, guess what? You're removing it. And so like any kind of special hardware, you know, like let's say you are going to leave, you know, we had one with you know, the whole house was Wi-Fi enabled and the whole 9 yards, but they're like, well, that was my account. Y'all got to go get your own. But there was no way to handle that transition over on there. So how to change accounts, things like these are like this is first world problems, right? But this shows, you know, that we have to be ready to handle technology and how we're going ahead with that. A lot of it can get taken care of during property disclosures, but this is just one of those things where we need to be detail oriented when it comes to this. Because if you just think like, oh, it'll all work out fine, then you end up with a pissed off buyer and seller at closing table, and that's never a really great place to be. So take the time, make sure that you're paying attention to the smart elements of a home. We got a lot of folks who are confused by Facebook's new property listing policy. So at the end of December, Facebook changed their, I was going to read it here. Facebook policy prohibits posting from business profiles onto Facebook Marketplace. Now you might say that's not really a big deal. All right. Here in Georgia, if you are a licensed real estate agent and you market property, who has to be able to be notified, be reached? Your broker, right? So in the past, from our business profiles, a lot of us have our business profiles linked to our business page, and we have our brokerage information included on our business profile, correct? Well, now you can't post there. from your business profile. You can't post from your business profile onto Facebook Marketplace, but you can from your personal. Now, does your personal page have your brokerage information listed on it?
Yeah.
Woo, red flag, right? So, Facebook's doing this because they want to make it to where they'd like for you to pay, honestly, is really where this is coming down to. But we have to make sure that we're being, because not all states are created equal. Some states that, you can market different ways, but here in Georgia, we have to make sure that the broker's information is listed. So if you're going to share something on Facebook Marketplace from your personal page, and it's real estate related, what has to be included? The brokerage information, right? So you can't just put up a link that doesn't have that. You have to just be very careful what you're putting into the Facebook business page, because you have to make sure that you're covering that. And I don't know that Greg is out there watching for it, but I don't want to be caught by it. So just be careful with that out there. Make sense? We have a lot of continuing education coming right now. First part of, like especially the, coming up in February, that kind of stuff. Please, you can go to mx1training.com, catch out all of our training classes. I talked about a lot of different lead systems. I've got lead generation coming up on the 30th. Again, if you need help on any of these kind of things, we have a ton of education, a ton of opportunity. Please take advantage of that right now. If you're slow, learn, plug in, fill in your brain, get all that going right there. Because really where I want to wrap up with here is that we need to be serving, not selling. This is, I'm never going to be the greatest salesman. I'm not going to be that, hey, what can I do to get your house today kind of thing. That's not my thing. But I do enjoy serving, and I do enjoy educating my clients and talking to them and carrying them through what can be very complicated transactions. So, first thing is know your market. Like Zillow will never replace you when you know your market. Zillow can't know its market. Zillow tried. How'd that work out for Zillow? Yeah, they can't even buy, they couldn't buy homes with their fancy algorithm and all that kind of stuff. What do we need to do? Know our market. So being in the MLS, going out seeing houses, that's it's so important out there. Sharing your expertise through social media, videos, blogs, posts. Talk about what's going on. Take the slides that we've gone through today. Just share one of those a day, things like that. Talk about these kind of things, what's happening in our market. Be the source of information, because if we leave it up to the news, they're going to say foreclosures are up 250%, which they are, but it's still way low, right? Be able to show that, talk about those kind of things, but share our expertise out there. Focus on your brand, right? Like it's about you. No one's going to do business with you because of Maximum One. I know that sounds terrible from the guy that owns a brokerage, but seriously, people are going to do business with you because they trust you. People don't trust businesses, they trust you. So you have to look at, what is your brand? What value do I bring to this transaction? What is my value proposition? Why should someone work with me? A lot of times we get into the business and we just kind of think, hey, I'm just here to cash checks and look at pretty houses. It don't work that way. And so it starts off with like what value are you bringing to this transaction? You have to stop and really look at what is your value proposition. Focus on relationship building. We have KB Core, and there's so many of us that are not utilizing that platform to the extent that it can be. It is a wonderful program, but if you don't use it, it's simply just a link that you never go to. So please, I encourage you, because it will help you build those relationships. Because we want to get involved with our community. You want to be known in your community. Like unless you're Mark Spain and you can buy billboards, you're just not going to get known in throughout all of Atlanta. But you can be known in your community. Show passion, professionalism, authenticity. Real matters a lot more than perfect. I'm not perfect, nowhere close. No one has ever accused me of that either. But I hope that you can tell that I'm real, that I'm authentic, and like I make mistakes and I just keep rolling. And authentic is very, very important. But the other side of that is that even though, especially right now, I feel that listening is a very, very needed skill in our market. I know I gave you a lot of information to talk about as far as, this is what's happening in our market and that kind of stuff. But if we're going, if there really is a recession, well, people have some hard financial times. Do we need to talk to people? But when I say talk to people, we need to listen, like God gave us 2 ears, 1 mouth. It should be used in that proportion. And so like just being able to listen to folks, what they're going through, hear them out, empathize what's really big, like what's happening in their world. Because sometimes, like we've had clients who I understand what's going on. It's not the right time for you to buy. I really do think that, maybe renting for the next year is going to be the right answer for you. And I tell you, like I empathize what's happening with you. Yeah. But hey, you got a baby due next month. There's no way you're getting in this house. I can't get you in a house in 30 days. I love you. We're just not going to be able to, you won't be able to get a house, find a house, close a house, move in, and then have a baby in 30 days. It's not happening. And so, but my heart goes out to them, right? I understand. We have to understand. Now, what happens a year from now? They're gonna be ready to buy a house again, right? So keeping up with them and that kind of stuff. Because we want to make sure that we're presenting all the different options right now. For a lot of our buyers, what's happened with interest rates. They used to be able to afford a lot of house, and the interest rates went through the roof. And then they started, once you start looking at $350,000 houses, and now we want you to look at $250,000 houses, are you happy with any of them? No. But now, will those options start improving as interest rates come down? So we want to be talking about the different options, what's going on, and really kind of informing our clients and keeping them up to speed. So I hope that you guys feel better about the market if you've been watching the news, because I am, to say I'm excited is probably an understatement. I really do feel we're heading into very, very good territory over the next year in the real estate market. But my worry is that people, it's very easy to get down and then stop engaging, stop doing what's really important. All the relationship building stuff, because as the market improves, if you wait until the market improves for you to start reaching out, engaging with your clients, talking to people, if you wait, at that point, they've already talked to other people. They've already built those relationships. And now when the market's and now you're starting off behind the 8 ball. Now is the time to really start building that engagement, because the market is shifting in a very positive way for real estate. Questions? All right, then we're going. So this is our top producers for last month. I'm going to let Nancy kind of jump in here and take over that. I appreciate you guys so much, and I love you. If I can be of any kind of service, please call, text, or smoke signals.